Who are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to talk about all matters relating to business and our business and professional lives, as well as investing and wealth building. So this is kind of the capstone show. It was an outgrowth of my original show where I talked about all the various aspects of the three pillars of attainment. It was in a different iteration then, but nonetheless, that's why you see on the crawl at the bottom, this is season 5. The first 3 seasons weren't under this name. The first 3 seasons were just the Way to Wow show. But thought I'd for absolute clarity and how all this works. So last week I talked about the types of relationships that we should consider building in order to gain the level of business and professional success that we wanted, or that we want. And I talked about several different kinds. I think there was a total of 8, if I recall. And by the way, you can go to my YouTube channel and view that episode if you'd like to see it. Today, I want to talk about holiday workplace etiquette. So we're heading into the holiday season now. Halloween is tomorrow. I don't know how many workplaces have Halloween parties, although I see quite a number that have Halloween decorations around. It's fun, especially if you've got the candy out. I'm not going to not take the candy for sure. Got to have those Reese's peanut butter cups and the Snicker bars, etc. And then we're on into Thanksgiving and of course Christmas and New Year's, and even at the there's a company that I oversee. So we were talking yesterday at our staff meeting about doing kind of an end of the year reception to have our clients come by and just take some time here at the as the year is coming to a close to thank them and do something on a less strictly business basis. So that having been said, I think it's time. So there's I forget who said this, but there's this sort of famous adage: I don't need to be told, but I need to be reminded. And I think we all know what is the proper way to deport ourselves in a business situation. But as the things become less formal in the workplace and the party atmosphere goes on, I think we need to remind ourselves what are kind of the standards of conduct. And so I came up with 7 that I want to talk about. And this is going to be actually a relatively brief show, I think, today. But I think, like I said, good for us to just take a few minutes, review these, and maybe put in our, the back of our own minds, what is going to be my sort of, modus operandi as, I attend various holiday events. And I would argue, by the way, that although I'm talking about a workplace context, I think that these rules would they apply really in any kind of networking or even non-work party context, just any kind of social event, whether it's work related or not. So for the idea, of course, is to in a workplace party to balance the professional atmosphere with the sense of festive spirit that the holidays bring. And so that's really kind of the perspective that I'm coming from. So first and foremost, as you might guess from a host who wears a tie every time you see him, or actually almost every time you see him, number one is dress appropriately. Now, I stress the appropriately. So if the holiday party is in the office and they don't designate what the dress code is, I strongly recommend asking the person or the people who have organized the party, what is the dress code? Because these days, to assume that it's maybe office casual when it's not could be a blunder. So oftentimes clients are invited to these parties, and the organization, the company, the practice wants to put its best foot forward, and so they may want people in business attire. Now, of course, business attire too is not is no longer a set way of dressing. So going back into the 80s and probably still in the 90s, when we said business attire for men, that meant most likely a suit and tie, but at least a coat and tie, and a sports coat and slacks, and a collared shirt and a tie. Now, I'm not even among lawyers. I see they're not necessarily wearing a suit and tie. Maybe in court, but I've seen lawyers in court. Men who are not wearing a tie in court. So I would say, also make sure you understand what does, how is, for example, business attire what does that mean in the context of either your company, or if you've been invited to another company's holiday party and they say, business attire, business attire. If you're in the tech world, business attire can mean, jeans and a t-shirt, right? And if you get invited to your lawyer's office and the dress code is business attire, again, what does that mean? Do they mean business attire as they define it, or as however it's defined by the individual? So it's a good way to avoid embarrassment, but also any holiday party is honestly, it's a marketing opportunity as well. So if there's going to be an opportunity there for you to meet someone who may be a potential client or maybe a potential funder, something like that. So the way you present yourself is going to be important, right? The old adage that you never have a second chance to make a first impression, right? So the default always used to be, if you weren't really sure, err on the side of being a little more dressy than you think might be required, as opposed to being a little bit less dressy. And I will tell you that when I go to holiday parties, so I have kind of two levels of suits. I have my business suits, which is what I wear if I have to make a court appearance, or if I'm at an important business event where I know it's the dress code is business dress. And then I have my what I call lounge suits. They're more casual suits. They're looser cut. They're lighter fabrics. These days, a lot of the clothing stores, whether it's COS or whether it's what's the other one? Scotch and Soda. Although I think Scotch and Soda is not here in the U.S. anymore. But the suits they tend to sell tend to be more of a kind of a more casually cut lounge suit. They're very nicely made, less expensive than a business suit, and they're great as kind of a way to be dressy without actually being as formal as a business suit. So, and you can wear them. You can wear them with a tie. You can wear them with a polo type collared shirt. You can even wear them with a very nice t-shirt. Like these days, you can get t-shirts that are, they're made of a finely woven wool, which is, nicer than cotton, and they drape very nicely. So, all of those are potential options for business dress that maybe is not as dressy as what you might wear, for like I said, for example, in a court hearing. So those are the kind of things to think about. And I hasten to add to that, shoes also make a big difference. So you can wear one of these more casual lounge suits with very nice tennis shoes. So I've got my K-Swiss tennis shoes, all white tennis shoes. And if I want to be kind of dressy but in a casual way, then sometimes what I'll do is I'll put on one of my more casual lounge suits with my K-Swiss tennis shoes. Typically I won't wear a tie then, but I may wear a collared shirt like this with an open collar, or maybe tie a scarf around my neck. I've done that several times lately, and I've had a number of compliments on that. So you can get creative and look professional, and still hit the right mark in terms of how dressy you need to be. Now, obviously, if it's specified a holiday party, if it's black tie, you're putting on a tuxedo. I don't think they have white tie parties anymore. Maybe at an embassy ball or something where you're going to wear a tailcoat and a top hat. I see that picture of Elon Musk periodically. He's in white. He's in white tie, but these days I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen. Although if you come to my house on a Friday night for Shabbat, it may be a black tie event. So so dress appropriately, and women, I would say dresses, slacks, pantsuits. Again, it needs to be commensurate to what the level of dressiness is. Now, the flip side is if it's a daytime party, maybe at somebody's beach house, something like that, where it's much less formal, or maybe you're going to an event here in Los Angeles. We have an organization called the Jonathan Club. They have a location downtown, but they also have one right on the beach in Santa Monica. So I could imagine if there were an event at the Jonathan Club in the afternoon. So whereas downtown you're almost always going to be pretty dressed up. On the beach, I would think, you would wear just maybe, slacks and a shirt, or maybe even shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. Certainly if it's someone's private home at the beach or something like that, they may say, hey, it's casual, or it's beach wear. Okay. Now, casual used to be, slacks and a sports coat, and a collared shirt and a tie. In the 1950s and 60s, that was still considered casual. Right nowadays, that would be more business attire. So again, what do they mean by casual? I mean, can you show up in flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt? I don't know. I can tell you, I never would. I'm too old for that look. But again, however dressing up or down you need to go, just make sure that you understand it, so that when you get there, you're comfortable about what's going on. Okay, so dress appropriately. You don't want to be too revealing or too flamboyant, but nothing wrong with being stylish, for sure. All right, number 2, limit your alcohol consumption. So especially if it's an open bar, right, there is an incentive, shall we say, to have a few too many drinks. So I know I was at an event a couple of weeks ago. It was an open bar, and I had one beer. They had wine, but it wasn't kosher, so I didn't drink it. But I had one beer, and then I was talking to various people, and I saw this one gentleman with what looked like a martini or a gimlet, and so I went up and asked him. I said, "Hey, where'd you get the gimlet or the martini? He said, oh, he said, I just asked one of the waiters around. I'm like, oh, okay. So I ordered a gimlet. I'm telling you, it was one of the best cocktails I've ever had. And if you watch my other show, Jiggers' Place, you know how much I like cocktails. I was really tempted to order a second one, but a beer and a gimlet over a 3-hour period. No, that's clearly enough alcohol. And get that gimlet probably would have cost because of the venue $20 or $30 or something. But just had to be tempered, and I also had to drive home, so not a good thing to drive drunk. On the other hand, to have a drink and to relax a little bit in a social situation can be a good thing, especially if you find those kind of situations a little bit daunting. Now, this you may not believe me, but I do. When I'm in a situation where I don't know anyone, or maybe I only know one or two people, I find it. I really have to push myself to talk to other people, and I'm still, to this day, I'm very uncomfortable walking up to a group that's already talking and just kind of lingering and until I have a chance to interject something or say hello or whatever. And going back to this event a couple of weeks ago, one of the reasons I went was to see a very long time friend of mine who it turned out wasn't going to be there. So I knew nobody there. I knew one person by reputation, and so I got to meet him face to face. But other than that, I didn't know anyone else there, and I did what I normally do in a situation like that, which is I found a group of people that looked like they were a little bit more boisterous than other people, and sort of stood there for a couple minutes and injected a comment, and they welcomed me into the group. And then one of the people in that group kind of took me under her wing and started introducing me to people she knew there, because she knew a lot of the people there for whatever reason. And then honestly, having a beer, which I'm not a big beer drinker, but having a beer, it helped me sort of relax, having driven there through traffic, you're a little bit and then parking and all that kind of stuff. So very nice event. And having a drink is perfectly fine. Now, by the way, if you're not a drinker at all, so then I would recommend avoiding alcohol, because one drink can send you flying. So a, a drink or two over the course of an evening, probably fine. More than that, I think unless it's been a really long party, and usually holiday parties are not, I'm not sure how you can, justify that, especially if you have to drive home. Now, if you're going to Uber home or whatever, and so, you don't have to be, strictly sober. So, if you're going to be there for 3 hours, then maybe 3 drinks is appropriate. Now, I will say that if they're serving champagne, and I don't mean sparkling wine, I mean literally, champagne from France. So, if it were kosher in my case, I would be very hard pressed not to have, at least one glass an hour, because it is my favorite thing to drink in the world. So we all have our weaknesses, but just, I think we want to be, conscious of our intake and how it's impacting our behavior. We don't want to do something embarrassing. We don't want to, lose our inhibitions, especially to the point where we might say something that is not appropriate, or we might do something like fall down, right? Those kind of things, or God forbid, worse. So again, limit your alcohol consumption. Next, number 3, socialize beyond your circle. Okay, that's one of the most important things to do at a workplace social event. And one of the nice things about them is you may not normally get a chance to interact with people who are much senior to you in the hierarchy. But at a holiday party, especially, you can go up to the president of the company or the chairman of the board or other C-suite people, the exec VPs, the senior VPs, whatever, and just take a moment, introduce yourself to the person, and wish them the greetings of the season. And they're going to do the same thing. And if they're there, they are expecting other, more junior people to meet them. And in fact, from their perspective as well, okay, it is their opportunity to meet more junior people in the organization that they normally would not come into contact with. Okay, and we have a sense that if people are senior to us, they're all really great at networking. None of them are shy. None of them are introverted. Not the case at all. So, the president of your company or the senior managing partner of your firm or whatever the organization is, that person may be very shy, and yet they're desirous of meeting junior people at a holiday party. And so if you'll just take the initiative to walk up to them and say hello, and just want to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Kevin Bemmel. I work in such and such a department or whatever it is. I just wanted to let you know how much I enjoy being a part of the organization, and wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And almost for sure, he's going to say, "Oh, thank you for, taking the time to say hello. And I'm glad to hear that you like the work you're doing here." And depending on how that person is disposed, may start asking you some questions, maybe about your work or what you think about this or that, or what do you like to do outside the office. That's a very, again, in a business meeting, you're probably not going to talk about those things, but at a holiday party, talking about interests beyond work is a good way to socialize. And look, if you find out that the president of the company, maybe he's a big time bass fisherman and so are you. I don't know why I picked that. I just did. He's going to remember you. Okay. He was like, "Oh, I remember that young guy, that young gal that I met at the holiday party, really into bass fishing, and knew all about the lures or the types of boats or whatever. And, really kind of impressed me." And if they're looking for, someone, to add a more junior member to a more junior person to be member of a team. So there you go. And so, again, while you're socializing, you're also looking to make connections with people. And so socialize outside of your circle. Socialize with people more senior than you. Socialize with people more junior to you. Socialize with people in other divisions and departments. Socialize with clients as well as people in your company. The thing about a holiday party is everybody knows the way they work is people who don't know each other have the opportunity to go up to one another and say hello, introduce themselves, etc. So unlike, in a restaurant or, something like that, it's understood that you have, in essence, permission. Okay. Now, I will put one caution on this. So if there is a particularly attractive female at the party, okay, she may be getting an extraordinary amount of attention merely because of her appearance, and that is problematic. And so, men, if you're going to approach that woman, and there's no reason you shouldn't, I would say be particularly careful to approach her on a professional basis. Okay, for two reasons. Number one, it is a holiday party. It is not a bar where you're looking to pick up a date or whatever. That's number one. Number two, she may have already been tried to be picked up a few times already and maybe a little bit annoyed or sensitive to that. And so if you're approaching her on a strictly professional level, so that will put you in good stead. Okay. And the third is, she may be a little bit nervous about the whole interaction. She may feel like maybe she has to absorb the more sort of prurient approaches that she's getting. That is not the case. That should never be the case. Now, it can go the other way, women to men, although usually that's much less of a problem, frankly. But especially if she's a junior employee of the firm, she may be coming from a position of, well, I'm just going to have to take these kind of, somewhat sly, innuendos that I'm receiving and all of that because I'm junior and I don't want to, offend somebody. And for her to be approached on a professional level will may very likely give you an opportunity to actually establish a professional relationship with her, whereas the kind of relationship she might establish with someone who's being kind of ew about the way he approaches her it's not going to be in the same context. So I just issue that word of caution, because it's tempting. This may be somebody that you've seen around the office many times. You are attracted to her. She acts, she's very nice, or very, has a very, charming personality or whatever. And the sense is maybe I can approach her and perhaps something personal will come out of it. So that can be a very dicey thing. Now, there are a lot of companies these days, they do not permit that kind of interpersonal behavior between colleagues. And we've seen, I know I've seen over the last couple of years, in the Wall Street Journal, many not high profile, but many CEOs and senior, C-suite people who have been fired because they were inappropriately involved with other people in their organization. So I think, you need to understand your company's approach to that. And so if you keep things on a strictly professional basis, friendly but professional, that's really the way to go, especially when you're, introducing yourself to someone that you didn't know before. Okay. This ties directly into the next point I want to make, which is respect boundaries. So much of what I was just saying about approaching a particularly attractive female colleague is about respecting boundaries. So I'll say this again: a holiday party is not an opportunity to cross into the personal realm with people with whom you do business. It's an opportunity to get to know them better, but not interact in the way that you might at a social party unconnected with work. At a social party unconnected with work, I think there's somewhat of an assumption that people may be approaching each other because they are potentially romantically interested in it, or they find somebody else attractive, or whatever it is. That's in a social party that may be perfectly appropriate, but in a professional party, that's not respecting boundaries. So you want to be aware of that as well. The types of things that you talk about really need to be bound by certain guidelines. So although office gossip is rampant, trading in it oftentimes is not a good idea, especially if you're talking to someone that you don't know or have just met. You have no idea with whom they're connected and to whom they might tell something that is sensitive. So I come from a religious tradition where gossip is not permitted. It's called lashon hora, which means literally evil tongue. And I remember being in high school, my choir class was fortunate enough to have a session with gosh, now I can't remember his name, but he taught us it was kind of almost like a calypso slash reggae song. Gossip, gossip, evil thing, much unhappiness it bring. If you can't say something nice, don't talk at all is my advice. I learned that when I was, I think, 15 years old, 14 years old, something like that. I didn't do it with the Jamaican accent that he did it with, but it's always stuck in my head. And so avoid gossip, number one, and then in general, you want to keep the discussions professional in tone. But you, like I said earlier, you may cross over. Oh, what do you like to do, or what do you do, outside of the office? Do you have any hobbies you particularly like? I think a question like that is perfectly fine. Getting to know someone a little bit more deeply. But that's probably about as far as you want to go. Now, if you're uncomfortable with having those kind of dialogues, one of the things I recommend doing is practicing. And you can practice almost anywhere you go. So if you're in a shop, I'm trying to think of. So several months ago, I took my daughter to a shop called Santa Maria Novella, or Di Novella. It was originally founded in Italy 1,000 years ago, literally 1,000 years ago, as an apothecary. So now it's essentially a perfume shop, or a scent shop, because it has scents for both men and women. And my daughter really loves apothecaries and that kind of thing, and the beautiful bottles and all that. So there now, this company has shops all over the world, and so there was one in West Hollywood. So I took her to it, and while she kind of looked around at the various things there, all the beautiful things to see, I talked with the people who were working in the shop, and just practiced engaging with people. And the fact of the matter is that that's a pretty low risk way to practice, because, all right, if you make a mistake, okay, so you may not be comfortable ever going back to that shop, but you're not going to blow something in terms of a professional opportunity or something like that. So, and I remember I was talking to one of the women working there, and somehow we got on the topic of old movies, which, for those of you seen my show Jiggers' Place, you know I'm a huge classic movie buff, and it turned out she was as well. It was something she got from her mother. And so while my daughter and the other woman working in the shop were kind of looking around the various things, she and I had a very nice conversation about various old movies that we liked, and it was a great opportunity. I looked at it as an opportunity to practice. And so, take those opportunities, engage with people when you're checking out at the grocery store, or whatever, the drugstore, or whatever it is. Chat with them a little bit, and you'll see it will dramatically improve your skills for interacting with people. Okay, next, make sure you thank the people who organized the party, and kind of from top to bottom. So I mentioned I was at an event a couple of weeks ago. The person who organized the event, for whatever reason, she wasn't there at the time when I was leaving, because I went and asked the young woman who was checking people into the event, to point her out to me so I could thank her. She wasn't there. But I also thanked the young woman who was doing all the checking in, because she was working the event. So if there are people working the event who are associated with the company, now if you don't have to necessarily thank the caterers or the serving people, not especially. I mean, if they hand you something, of course, thank you for my cocktail or whatever. But when it comes to the people who from the organization who organized and are working the event, I recommend that you thank them, including what are, typically, clerical people who are handling, checking you in, for example, or your parking validation or whatever it is. So it will put you a cut apart from most of the other people there. The fact of the matter is, most people ignore the sort of administrative people at an event, in the same way that most people tend to not thank the busboy at a restaurant. Okay, and so take an extra few minutes to thank those people. They've worked hard. They're probably not getting to enjoy the party in the same way you and their colleagues are, and so having someone come and make it a point to thank them or greet them, say hello to them, chat with them for a few minutes, will really enhance their experience, and it will pay dividends. I was having this conversation in a staff meeting yesterday, and we were talking about how being polite and expressing gratitude to sort of administrative rank and file people is very important. Not just because hopefully that's the kind of people we are, but because it does afford us some benefits down the road typically. So I know I had a circumstance yesterday where I had a call scheduled with somebody and she had to cancel. She had her assistant get in touch with me, and her assistant started in very apologetic. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, look, I understand these things happen. Certainly it's not your fault, but I appreciate you letting me know and taking the time to help get this meeting rescheduled. And it was clear she was a little bit taken aback, because I don't know. Look, people have to reschedule meetings. So I would think that most people would be gracious in a situation like that. But the impression I got from her was that was not typically the case with her boss's clientele. Maybe I don't know. But my feeling was, again, she had nothing to do with her boss not being able to make it. I don't know why. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she had a conflict come up. Who knows? Maybe she had car trouble. Who knows? Doesn't matter. She was, good enough to have her assistant call me, and the assistant is just trying to help me out. That, I'm no reason I should be anything other than absolutely polite and gracious with her. And so I think that's how, in general, we want to be. Okay. Next, if there are activities, maybe there's some kind of game, or maybe there's a gift exchange or whatever, participate. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a little self-conscious about games at a party. So I know, from time to time I've been invited to holiday events where maybe it's a casino thing, they may be raising money or whatever. I do not care for gambling at all. Maybe go to the horse races once every 10 years or something, so you're out in the sunshine watching the horses run, especially if you can be in the infield and feel the ground moving as the horses come. And then put down a couple of bets on particular horses. That I enjoy, frankly. But like casino gambling, nah. Slot machines, nah. But if there is some kind of activity going on, it really is incumbent on us to participate and participate, willingly. And we don't have to be like overly enthusiastic, but pleasantly participate. Sometimes these activities, they're meant to build morale. Sometimes they're meant to help us break the ice. Okay, whatever it is. So just be a participant. There's one organization that I'm involved with, and now I'm going up on the name, but it's basically an organization for young Jews coming out of college, helping them get oriented into the workplace into professional environment. And the fellow who leads the group, Bradley Caro, he always does some kind of it's sort of like a game for us to introduce ourselves and all that. And again, not my favorite thing, but I do my best to participate with a sense of the spirit of the event, and that's what's important. I think we should strive to do that. So we shouldn't leave before the game just to get out of the game, for example. That's not being respectful to our hosts. And if they are doing the game or the gift exchange or whatever it is, so clearly they have a purpose in mind for doing that. Well, I shouldn't say clearly, but most likely they have a purpose in mind for doing that. And so then part of our responsibility as a professional, someone in the workplace, is to help make that successful. Okay, and then finally, last of my 7 tips on workplace etiquette is keep track of the time. Okay, so if the event is called for 2 hours, don't stay for 3. Okay, right? Be prepared to leave at 2 hours, or maybe you don't have to stay for the whole 2 hours. Maybe it's a 2-hour time frame, and people are invited to stop by during the 2 hours for an appropriate amount of time. Now, if it's a 2-hour event with people kind of dropping in and out, you want to set an appropriate amount of time, at least 30 or 45 minutes. To drop in for 10 minutes and leave is actually quite rude, and you're probably not showing yourself in a particularly good light. And I would say, even if you're a senior person, the sort of pop in to make an appearance and leave is rude to the more junior people in the firm who, from their perspective, this is an opportunity for them to meet you, and they may be counting on doing that. So if you just put in an appearance and then leave 5-10 minutes later, so not only are you disappointing them, but you're also essentially saying to them, it's not worth my time to be around long enough for me to meet you. And that's a dispiriting message to send, especially during the holidays. So now the flip side is, depending on how formally the event is set up, if the planners may need help sort of taking things down or cleaning things up, it's a good idea to, before you leave, to ask, hey, do you need any help getting things cleaned up or taken down or whatever? And they might say, actually, yeah, we were going to ask a few people to stay after for 30 minutes or 40 minutes and help us kind of put the room back. If you'd be willing to do that, we'd really appreciate it, right? Or they might say, no, we're good. We're going to let things sit and we'll take care of it tomorrow or whatever it is. Okay, but they're going to appreciate the fact that you asked. And that's a good thing to do before you leave as well. It can be something that, if you're going to, say goodbye to the person who planned the event, say, hey, I'm thinking about taking off now, but before I go, just wanted to thank you for organizing the event. It was lovely. And I, if you need some people to stay to help clean up, I'm certainly happy to do that. And we just wanted to check with you on that, so you're not left in the lurch, right? Absolutely, they're going to appreciate the thoughtfulness of that, and it's very much in the spirit of the holidays, right? This is the time of year to do that. So, in summary, just going over the 7 points again. So, dress appropriately, limit alcohol consumption, socialize beyond your usual circle, respect boundaries. Make sure to say thank you, express gratitude to the various people, participate in any activities, and finally, just keep track of the time so that you're not, on the one hand, overstaying your welcome, and on the other hand, sort of leaving it to everybody else, to have to stay afterwards to clean up while you're off, doing whatever it is that you're doing. So I'm not going to wish you a happy holidays yet, not quite time for that, but my hope is that you will have a number of opportunities to go to holiday parties. This is my favorite time of the year, fall leading into the beginning of winter. I just find people seem to be more friendly, more open, whether it's in the stores, on the street, in the workplace, whatever. Everybody's looking forward to a little bit of downtime, perhaps at the end of the year, and so it's a great time to make connections and to get to know people on a little more solid basis than maybe in our just day-to-day workplace situations. So I encourage you to take advantage of that and to enjoy the upcoming holiday parties and seasons. So thank you very much for joining me today. Always appreciate it when you tune in with me live, or if you're watching this afterwards, checking out the video recording. If any thoughts, comments, questions you have, all the contact information, social media contacts will be in the show notes after this episode posts on YouTube. And next week on Monday at 10 a.m. is my show, Trust and Estates Weekly. My guest is Marianne Dean, and Marianne specializes in working through disputes in trust and estate matters. She's really spent her whole career doing that. And I know I'm really looking forward to talking with Marianne. I'm really excited for this show. And so I invite you to tune in on Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, and hear what Marianne has to say. I think you will find it very useful and enlightening. And then Tuesday at 10 a.m. is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. And then a week from today, we'll be back with the next edition of Business Lessons. With the next edition of People Making Money. And then, and I should have had this up, but I closed it out. So, and then next week, on Thursday at 5 p.m. is the next episode of my every other week show, Jiggers' Place. So that's 5 p.m. Pacific time. We'll have a cocktail and talk about all the things that make life worth living besides business and professional and monetary matters. So thanks again for joining me. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful rest of the week. A happy Halloween for those of you celebrating. And signing off as I always do. Marie, darling, you are my belle.